So hello and welcome to another episode of Steam's 4 Wheels. As you can see, I'm out and about with my £500 SLK today, and I've got to know this car a little bit more over the last couple of weeks. In my last video I literally just picked up the car and driven it home, and I didn't really know too much about it. I've been out for a couple of drives in this car, and I've also started to do a few bits and pieces towards getting this car actually back up to a good standard. As you've seen in my last video, it is £500 for a reason. So we're going to go back over, I'm going to show you a few little bits that I've been doing today, and also a few things that I've discovered about this car as well. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about sort of the plan for this car really, because I've had to sort of go away and start to think, well, what do I want to do with this? How far do I want to take the sort of restoration of this car almost? So as you can tell, here is my £500 SLK. You might have already noticed a couple of bits on it. Probably the most obvious thing is that I've actually given it a little bit of a clean. I'll come back onto that in a moment, but as you can see, the paintwork now is coming up really well. Starting to anyway. It still needs machine polish, hopefully I'm going to get around to sort of next few days. You'll probably notice well on the front there's a new number plate as well, which is nice and easy to do. So I was quite happy about that until I got to the back, and then suddenly decided that that suddenly was very difficult compared to the front. The front was pretty much bolt on, bolt off, and I wanted to fit the new number plates and also surrounds to them as well. A few of the bolts were actually quite rusted on there, so I decided to go and change all the bolts, do everything, do a proper job, and that was fine on the front. But on the back it was a bit of a different story, because there's always some bolts that had sheared off. On the previous owners had obviously changed them at some point, and the bolts had sheared off. So I couldn't quite line up the number plate holder how I wanted to do it. So that was a little bit of a pain, to be honest. It looks smart now it's done, I shall be honest. Front and rear number plates, it's really again transformed the look of the car. The front one particularly had a couple of cracks on the number plate. Was some stone chips gone up to it and actually cracked the number plate. So again, makes the car look a little bit tidier. So I'm going to go back into looking at the detail I did, and as you can see, the car really is starting to come up quite nicely. There's still a lot of scratches on the bonnet, but I have to admit they're not quite as noticeable now. They really were noticeable before, but now it's not too bad. Again, a lot of them haven't gone for the paint, so I'm hoping that really it's not going to be too bad, and actually a good machine polish will get the majority of the scratches out. I also did things like the compressor badge. I got some my detailing brush out and really gave it a good deep clean. They haven't quite come up as I expected. I think it's going to take a couple of cleans to actually get all the little bits of grime just out of all the little bad. I don't think it's been done for years, to be honest. A lot of it's ground in. I also did the same around the back with the SLK 230. So looking at the wheels, as you can see, they've come up quite well actually. This is probably the worst wheel on the car, to be honest. As you can see, there's a little bit of blackness around the outside. Also around the centre you can see the paint is just starting to bubble up. Now again, this might be something that I'm going to do. Probably not in the immediate future, because I think it doesn't look too bad at the moment, so you get quite close up to it. The centre caps are good, which is something that always goes on old Mercs, to be honest. I've replaced mine on the other SLK 3 or 4 times already. They just don't seem to last. So as you can see, it's a good deal has revealed the rust on this car, which we obviously knew about anyway. And as you can see, yeah, it's not particularly pretty, but as I said last time, it's a very good 10-foot car. So ultimately I've had to stop and really think about this SLK and think about, well, what am I going to do with this car? Now I've bought it and now I've got it home and it's all tax insured and it is in a drivable condition. It's perfectly fine to drive. It needs a few little bits, which I'll come on to in a moment. The big issue with this car is the bodywork. As I already mentioned, it is starting to look a bit better now, but there is obviously still the issues with the rust around the wheel arches. The bonnet as well is also, it's okay. It will probably be alright, but there's quite a few stone chips on there and some scratches on the front which have gone into the paint as well, which isn't really the best. So it might be that eventually I'll touch up all the wheel arches to each for 4 of those, and then give the bonnet as well and give that a quick blow over. However, this car for £500, I'm so impressed with it. That's the one thing I will say. It's sort of taken me a couple of weeks to drive the car a little bit, get to know the car a little bit more, and I could tell it's a good car. You know, I work for a car dealer, and I regularly have to go to cars and look at, are we going to sell this? Are we going to go and send it down the auction? Is it too much hassle? Pass it on to someone else? And I do get feelings about cars, and this one was a really good car, and I can't believe it was £500. I know I keep saying it, but I just can't get over it. But as I already mentioned, this was one that I've had to go away and sort of think about a little bit. What am I going to do with this car? And obviously it needs work, and it was more a question of, well, how far do I push that? On this car, I mentioned the bodywork really isn't the best part of this car. It probably, every panel, there's something wrong with it, whether it be a dent or a scratch or something needs doing to it. And it's really been a question for me about how far do I actually push this, and how much of restoration do I take it. And I think I've come up with a bit of an answer to that question. And ultimately, it does need work doing to it. I don't want the bodywork to get much worse than this. It does need work on it. But I also don't want to push that too far. I don't think this car really warrants a full respray. Some of you might say, well, if there's something wrong with every single panel, why not just go the whole hog? There's a couple of reasons behind that. I actually just want to keep this as quite an honest example, and I don't really want to be, I want to play on the fact that actually it is a £500 Mercedes, it is a cheap car, and I want to sort of show people you don't have to have a lot of money in order to have quite a nice car for the weekend. You know, you can have a daily drive, and you can even daily drive this if you wanted to, but ultimately I wanted to show people that actually you don't have to have a lot of money, particularly getting something quite tasty like this. So again, I don't really want to say to people, I bought this £500 and I sunk £4,000 into a respray. That sort of defeats the object of what I'm trying to achieve. So ultimately, I want to get this car done up a bit. I want to get it tidied up. So the bodywork is really going to be the first thing that I get done on this car. That is the number one priority really with that rust. It's not going to get any better, it's only going to get worse. And while the car's still in a nice condition, let's actually get it sorted and let's nip that in the bud. There's going to be, I'd say, machine polish in the next couple of days, hopefully, if I can get out. And it's at the moment it's a little bit wintry, shall we say, so it makes it hard work to clean the car and to detail it properly. So apart from the bodywork on this SLK, what else needs doing to it? Well, actually, it's mechanically fairly solid. I've driven this car, there's no knocks, there's no bangs, there's nothing that sounds out of sorts. It drives acceleration in a straight line, it brakes in a straight line. The brakes are a little bit squeaky. However, those have actually really improved since I've actually bought the car, and I think it just based with lack of use. When I first looked at the car and it was brought in as a part exchange, you sort of only have to look at the brakes and they started squeaking. Just the sheer idea of touching the brakes of this car, it would just start squeaking. However, now it does only seem to be very occasionally it squeaks. I did went out for a drive last weekend, and I went through a little town. I was coming to this T-junction, it's about 8:30 in the morning. I was thinking, please don't squeal, please don't squeal. And it didn't, thankfully, because I was had to wake up the whole of the little town. It should have been made me very popular, I'm sure it would have done. So that's something I'm going to do. It needs an oil service and filter change, which I'm probably going to get done sort of next year now. It had one a couple of years ago. It's not really done many miles, however I do think it's probably in need of one. One of the other things that when I bought this car, I had a used car check done by the Mercedes dealer, and they said the brake fluid needed changing, so that's something I'm going to get done as well. Again, I'll probably get that done all at the same time. And if the brakes are still having issue with the squeaks, as I call it, the squeaks as I call it now, I'm also going to get that sorted as well. So mechanically, not really that much else I want to do to it. So I really just wanted to do this video to sort of set a bar. I sort of didn't quite know what I was going to do with this car last time. And so a little bit of a light restoration on it. I've already started doing a few little bits and pieces, and I'll be documenting a bit more what I'm going to do with this car as well in the coming sort of little series that I'm doing. So I've decided to call it Project SLK, which you've probably seen from the title of this video, and this is going to be part 1. So my last part, obviously I just didn't really know the car, I didn't quite know what I was going to do with the car, and I've had to go away a little bit and just really think about what I want to do with it, how far do I want to push this car. I'm quite enjoying having a little bit more of a challenge with this car. It's not just a simple, I normally bought all my cars in the past and they've been very simple, right, let's go, get in the car, let's enjoy it. Whereas this one, I'm actually going to have to put a little bit more time and, more importantly, money into it. And I'm quite looking forward to it. I haven't really spoken about this on the channel before, but I've been looking around for a bit of a cheaper car to have. I don't particularly want a third car because I'm already very lucky with having 2 cars, but sometimes opportunities like this sort of present themselves and I just couldn't say no ultimately. So that's going to bring it into the part 1 of the Project SLK series that I'm starting. There's certainly be a lot more. Hopefully I'm going to try and get this car done for sort of February, March time, and I want to get it out to shows and out doing drives and just out there where there's no point having a car that isn't being used, which is what this car wasn't being. It's done probably about 1,000 miles in MOTs. It's really just done not much at all, and I just feel it's a crying shame. It's such a lovely car to drive. It does have issues, as I mentioned in this video, but ultimately it needs to be driven, it needs to be used. And as I said in the last video, I'm still probably going to give it a year, see what happens with this car, how I do it up, and see what the results are. As I said, I don't want to make it perfect, but I want to show that actually you can buy quite a nice car for not a lot of money. So that brings us to the end. I promise I'll stop muffling on there, and that does bring us to the end of this episode. If you enjoyed it, as usual, pop a like on this video, and also if you want to see more about this SLK, but also my other SLK and all the other stuff that I do, which is quite varied on this channel, please do subscribe to the channel, and then you also get updates as well for when I upload a new video. So thanks. So it's goodbye from me, goodbye from my £500 SLK, and yes, that won't be the last time you hear me say that. I still can't believe how cheap this car was, and I will speak to you next time. Goodbye.